Welcome to What's the Story Dublin, the official Dublin City Council podcast with me, your host, Deirdre Malumbi. This podcast deep dives into the work of all the moving parts that make up Dublin City Council. It also shares news of the Council's latest initiatives and exciting events. In today's episode, we're looking at the role of the Lord Mayor of Dublin. I'm delighted to be joined today by the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Emma Blain. Lord Mayor, you are very welcome today.
Thank you, Deirdre. It's lovely to be here.
Thanks so much for coming in. And I have to say, Lord Mayor, I think that, something we always start off with this podcast is asking people about their background, how they came into the role. And I think people will be really, really fascinated to hear what was the path that led you to the role of the Lord Mayor of Dublin.
I think, Deirdre, it's been kind of a roundabout path. I don't think when you are planning your career, you ever have been the Lord Mayor of Dublin as one of your goals. I certainly didn't. When I was a child, I used to love the role, the office. I remember meeting my first Lord Mayor, Ben Briscoe, when I was about 8.
Wow.
And that picture was framed on the mantelpiece in our house. So to my family, and I think to all Dubliners, it's a role that everybody respects and holds in high regard, but you never actually think that you're going to be the Lord Mayor. So I began my career as a journalist. I started writing for the Sunday Independent when I was still in college, completing my master's. So I was a journalist for a few years, but first went into elected politics in 2016. Where I was elected to Dunleary Rathdown County Council. So I served as a councillor there for 8 years before moving constituency back to my home constituency just last year. And I was elected to Dublin City Council last year. So as you know, you have to be an elected representative on Dublin City Council to be elected the Lord Mayor. So in my first year on Dublin City Council, was delighted to be elected as Lord Mayor.
Brilliant. Just kind of historically, can you tell us a little bit about the role of the Lord Mayor of Dublin? Like, how long has the role actually existed for?
Would you believe that the role goes back to 1665? Wow. Yeah. So no wonder it's so well respected by Dubliners. I am the 357th Lord Mayor of Dublin, wow. Which I think is pretty cool. And I'm only the 12th female. So it's been around a long time and has really, various Lord Mayors have really left their mark on the city, I think. So it's a role that I'm really, really proud to have.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear actually about the female Lord Mayor of Dublin and the fact that you're only the 12th, because that's kind of a change that there's been to the role in probably more recent years, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so 1939 was when we had our first female Lord Mayor, and that was, it made history not only in Ireland but around the world. Wow. And brought a lot of attention to the city. So when people hear that I'm the 12th, they actually think that's not too bad. I would like to see some improvement on that. But it's, if you look around the Mansion House, it is full of portraits of previous Lord Mayors, and they are all men. So my daughter is 9 years old and she is a budding feminist. So when she first set foot into the Mansion House, it was one of the first things she's noticed, and she called it out on RT News as well. So I was really glad in my last Lord Mayor's business to be able to announce that we've commissioned a portrait of the 12 female Lord Mayors, which will be hung in the Mansion House to go some way to redress the balance on the walls there. I mean, it's amazing to have so many historical paintings around the building, but we wanted to be representative of reality as well.
Mm-hmm. We only have a few hundred years to catch up.
We
on,
only
right?
have a few hundred years, exactly.
And for those Lord Mayor with no knowledge or awareness of the role, what does the Lord Mayor of Dublin actually do, kind of on a day-to-day basis?
That's a really good question, Deirdre.
If it's possible to quantify.
No, I know, and it's a question that I get asked quite a lot, because although it's a visible presence, people don't often know what exactly you do. So there are kind of set things that you are the first citizen of Dublin, and in doing that you're an ambassador for the city, nationally and internationally. And then you chair all the meetings of Dublin City Council and sign the records of proceedings, and then represent the city at public events. The chairing of the meetings is, we have our monthly meetings and 63 councillors. So that in itself is a task that takes a bit of preparation. So you have all your administrative work to do in and around that. But apart from that, it is very difficult to describe a typical day in the Lord Mayor. You start, early doors, you finish late at night. You could be meeting the President. Yesterday I met with the Taoiseach. This afternoon I'll have a group in from Irishtown and Ringsend. You're visiting schools, visiting the Gardaí, trying to make decisions on public policy, trying to make our city safer, cleaner, better, all those kind of broad stroke things. But then you're fundamentally getting out, and the bit I love most about it is just meeting people all across the city, having people into the Mansion House. I want people to come to me. I want people to visit the house that have never had the opportunity to do so. It's a public building, they're all welcome. But I love getting out into our communities as well. I've been to places in Dublin, even though I've lived in Dublin all my life, grew up here. There's places that I hadn't visited until I started this term, and I've just loved every minute of that.
Yeah. It's really such a wide spanning role. I know that there's been, for example, a little bit of travel involved. My grandmother actually saw you at the National Concert Hall, and she was like, "Oh, she's very glamorous, isn't she?"
Yeah, that was a lovely event. That was probably the piano competition.
I think so, yeah.
So you're a patron of a lot of different bodies as well, and they're lovely. It's lovely to be able to represent the city in that way as well. Cultural events, the literary prize. The Lord Mayor is the patron of that as well. So it's brilliant to be able to bring things like music to the people, reading, all these important things, day-to-day life that are so important in our cultural history, because we are a city that is full of history, full of culture. We have so many amazing writers to be proud of, so many amazing musicians. We punch above our weight in so many different ways, and to be able to represent those people is just a privilege,
And something I've loved about your run as Lord Mayor is you've been involved in some really, really kind of amazing initiatives. Can you tell me a little bit about what were your primary goals and objectives when you kind of came into this role?
So when I was elected, there was 3 priorities that I set out. The first was that I've spoken about what an amazing city we have. Our people are the very best of that. And I wanted our people to remind themselves and to remind each other of what is so special about our city. Our people are the most special thing about our city. So that was, I also think that we're too hard on ourselves. We all say that. We're hard on each other in everyday life, but I think we're too hard on ourselves as a city. So I wanted to, change that narrative. I also wanted to promote the participation of girls, and particularly teenage girls, in sport. We all know about the dropout rates. We also know the huge benefits that sport brings to girls, especially, teamwork, resilience, leadership, all those great things, apart from the health benefits of it. So I wanted to do what I could to promote that participation, to make it easier for them to stay in sport and to be involved in their communities in that way. And the third thing was to raise awareness of dementia around our city, to make it more inclusive for those that are living with dementia and their carers. There's 64,000 people living in Ireland with dementia. That's going to grow hugely over the coming years with our ageing population. And we've made great steps in this city about being more inclusive around neurodiversity, and I think we need to do the same around dementia. So I've been working on those three things really primarily over the last few months.
Absolutely. And actually, as part of kind of the latter, the raising of awareness around dementia, you launched this new initiative called Memories Made in Dublin, which has really been a personal favourite of mine. It's absolutely so gorgeous. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just adored that project. So it was kind of twofold, Deirdre, with that. That was also serving to remind people what's great about Dublin. So it was to remind ourselves of those, but also for people to share their memories of special times spent in Dublin. So I invited it out to the public, people who live in Dublin, who have lived in Dublin, who visited for a day, or whose parents came from Dublin. And I wanted them to share their stories, their pictures, their videos, their memories of times that they spent in the city. And it was really overwhelming, the amount of the response that we had. It wasn't what we expected. Pleasantly. And the exhibition was on show in City Hall for a few weeks there. And I can tell you that I visited a few times, and the reaction that the public gave it was not something that I expected. It was hugely emotional. People were walking into the room and bursting into tears. People who hadn't contributed. There was one man that I met, and he was around my age. We asked him, he just burst into tears, and we asked him, have you got a memory on the wall? And he said, no, but this is my life. This is my family. This is my city. This is my memories. So it served to highlight, I think, how important memories are, and when we lose them, we still have some, but what a great connector they are. How much we all have in common, whether we've, haven't grown up in Dublin, whether we've spent time here. There's so many different ways that our communities are connected, and so much we have in common, and so much we have to be grateful for as well.
Absolutely. And that'll continue to have a presence online, isn't it?
Yes. It'll be online for the foreseeable.
Brilliant. Yeah. And you've also revitalised a former initiative in the Dublin City Centenarians project. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because that was something else I noticed actually about your time in office as Lord Mayor, was really kind of focusing on the elderly and the incredible contributions that they've made to our community. Yeah.
And it's something I've always prioritised personally. I'm in awe of our senior citizens, the contributions that they've made to our communities, particularly women, I'd have to say. Some of them who are in their 80s, 90s, who weren't, because of the working family rule, weren't working, were raising their families, contributing to their societies, contributing to their communities, have given so much through voluntary work and leadership and minding their grandkids and all of that. So I wanted to give back to them during my time, and we've had some really special events in the Mansion House for them. But the Centenarians project was something that was brought to my attention just before I became Lord Mayor, and I thought it was an amazing initiative that had been abandoned over the last few years. We don't really know why. Just some things fall by the wayside. So I wanted to bring this back. So I am next week having our 100-year-olds and over, because it hasn't been around for a few years. There's some catching up that we need to do. So they'll be coming into the Mansion House next week in my final week in office, and we'll be having an afternoon tea, and I'll be presenting them with a scroll, and there's going to be a beautiful ledger that their names will be forever printed in the history of the Mansion House. I'm really looking forward to that.
Fantastic. We're really looking forward to seeing it as well. And I've also loved seeing your work. You mentioned it earlier about promoting sports inclusion and participation for young girls, including sparring with Kelly Harrington recently. I was very impressed by those pictures, I have to say, online.
Deirdre, I can tell you that my legs were very sore after that. But I did say I have to practice what I preach. So Kelly was wonderful. She came into the Mansion House, and I had an event for teenage girls across the city a couple of weeks beforehand, and it was a workshop. I wanted to find out from the girls what they love about sport, why they're still in it, what challenges they're facing, what can we do as Dublin City Council to make improvements, to make it easier for them to participate and stay in sport. So I had a prize at that event, and the prize was to win a sparring session with Kelly. So we did that in the Mansion House, and she gave an inspirational talk to the girls as well, and it was so much fun. But I can tell you I was tired afterwards.
But if you look at the pictures online, it's really amazing because it's the background of the Mansion House, and then you are all just running around like punching each other and stuff. It's absolutely amazing to see.
Well, we were talking about where to do it, and we were talking about doing it, in a boxing ring or doing it in one of the stadiums, and then it was like, why do we not do it in the Mansion House, in the Oak Room that has had, so many historical events, so many important figures. These girls are important girls. They're the future of our city. Kelly's a 2-time Olympic champion. She's, a sporting idol for these girls. Why not bring all these important people together into the Mansion House and create another bit of history?
Absolutely. And we've loved seeing that. And I have to say, we're so sad to see your time come to an end, in this role. What did you enjoy most about being Lord Mayor overall?
Deirdre, I'm really sad as well, I have to tell you. I'm going to try and keep my emotions in check until the 1st of July. Because if I pause to think about like the question that you've just asked me, what's been my highlight, it's really, really difficult to say, because I have genuinely enjoyed every minute of every day. I've enjoyed sleeping for the 3 or 4 hours in between those days as well, but I've really, really loved it. But I have to say, if I had to point out a couple of things, one would be the Kelly experience, having the girls into the house. But in March, I had a very special event for our senior citizens in the Round Room, and it was an afternoon tea dance. And I had senior citizens in from across the city, from all parts of the city. Some were living with dementia, some weren't. The Culture Company were involved as well. So we had dancers, we had an amazing band called the Ritz Brothers. And I was a little bit worried that they might not be up for the dancing, so we had people there to help. But I can tell you, as soon as the music started, the dance floor was filled. We had to move the tables back so they had more room, and they danced and they talked and they shared stories, and they stayed, I think, a couple of hours longer than they were supposed to. They all arrived early, because I can tell you that our senior citizens are always punctual. But I had so many of them walk out that door with the biggest grins on their faces and tell me that it was the best day of their lives. And to be able to create that kind of feeling, that kind of positive emotion, to be able to give back to these people and for them to have enjoyed themselves so much, I was standing back in awe. On the verge of tears, of happiness, because it was just such a wholesome, beautiful event. I hope it'll be an annual event, because it just brought so much joy, and that has to be a huge highlight for me. Obviously, the St. Patrick's Day parade and getting to ride in the Lord Mayor's carriage with my children was very, very special as well. But day to day, just genuinely meeting people that I wouldn't have the opportunity to meet, and that's ordinary Dubs, because I'm an ordinary Dub as well, to be able to connect and hear those stories and hear their happy and sad stories is just, a highlight and a privilege.
Absolutely. Some beautiful memories there. And what has been your biggest kind of takeaway or learning from your time as Lord Mayor of Dublin?
On a practical sense, time management.
That's a good one.
But the biggest takeaway, it really is that that we are lucky. Our people are brilliant. Dubs are special people, and we just need to big each other up a bit more and have empathy for one another and compassion, and that's the most important thing that I think that I can learn and share with other people,
Absolutely. And that'll be for life, really. And for those out there who are aspiring to be the next Lord Mayor or just happen into the role, what advice would you offer to them?
Well, like I said at the beginning, I don't think it's anything that people really necessarily aspire to. People might aspire to be a politician, or they might aspire to maybe be the president, but it's such a unique role that you never think that it's going to happen to you. But I would say that if it's something that you want to do, get involved in your community, figure out what's going on, help each other out. You have to be an elected politician to become, as it stands, the Lord Mayor of Dublin. So I would always encourage people to be involved in politics at whatever level, if it's whatever party, just get involved, find out what's going on in your community, get on a committee, get involved, and especially girls and young women. We need more of them. We always need more. So anyone can reach out to me if they want to, any direction in that. But in the first instance, I'd say get involved in your community.
Brilliant. I think that's actually the perfect note to leave it on. Thank you so much for today, Lord Mayor. It's really been an honour and a privilege to have you join us. I appreciate so much you taking out the time to speak with us today on the podcast, and we're just really excited to see what you do next.
Thanks, Deirdre. Thanks, Amelia.
And thanks again to today's guest, the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Emma Blain. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our audio engineer and editor, Robert Fay. This podcast was produced by myself, Deirdre Malumbi, and Michael Ryan, and recorded in the Central Library Studio. Thanks for checking out this bonus episode of What's the Story Dublin. If you haven't already, be sure to go back and listen to Season 1. Available across Spotify, Apple, other podcast platforms, and YouTube. Season 2 is coming soon, so like and subscribe to What's the Story Dublin to keep in the loop for future episodes. Slán go fóill.